Welcome to Retirement Unlimited. This is the program that talks about financial matters, and we try to bring you current information to help you make good and smart decisions about your financial life. I'm here with Jeremiah Lee, and Jeremiah is also a certified financial planner. He's also an attorney, and he helps our clients with legal issues like estate planning and other contractual law issues. And in the program today, what we want to talk about is the things that are facing California. And all of you, hopefully, that are listening and watching us right now are going to go to the ballot box in November. So what we want to do is talk about the propositions that are facing California and give you at least some information that you will make a better choice when you go to the ballot box. Jeremiah, I mean, we've had a chance to kind of look at these propositions, and you've actually dug pretty deep into actually some of the funding of this. And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, to give the kind of context that most people know, California has a proposition system where rather than just going through the legislature, we can go straight to the people. And I think when they first started this, it was a great idea. Let's get the people's voices of something that the legislature maybe isn't proposing, but people can vote on. And since then, California history, we've had all sorts of things come on the propositions.
Right.
Some have been ridiculous, some have been great. There's probably a mixed bag of items, but obviously it's interesting, the stuff that gets to the people. And some of it we have, strong opinions on. Most people have thoughts on. Other items, I don't know that we or anyone else really knows or cares about.
Yeah, and I think the common issue is that you look at a proposition and most people read through it, at least in the summary, and they really don't know how they should vote on it. I mean, there's obviously critical money that's being put into these things, and always my question is, who's going to benefit and why are they asking for this information? Right.
Who's funding it? I think is a huge question. We'll talk through that a little bit. The other thing that's interesting, it makes California kind of a patchwork of, we'd have say a master plan, but there's thoughts where we're heading as a country or as a state, how we're developing, but then you get a proposition tossed in there. And what do you do? For example, there's two propositions on, excuse me, that are relating to online sports betting.
Okay.
I guess sports betting.
Yeah, man, the television ads are just.
There's a lot of money involved.
My goodness, everything.
But there's just a comment: if both of these pass, if they both get approved, well, what now? Right. One says, certain companies can work this way to get licenses. Others say it's only tribal casinos that get licenses. There'd be a conflict, and it'd be a patchwork if they both pass. If one passes, then we'll know which way we're going. But it's just unique in the sense that they're alternative options that they conflict with each other, and if they both pass, they both become law until some court kind of sorted them out.
And these are Proposition 26 and 27.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start there? 26 and 27. So Proposition 26 basically allows tribal casinos, so Native American casinos, to start including sports betting, as well as add some dice and card games like poker and roulette, things like that. Currently, most casinos can do slot machines, and they're kind of limited there. And California currently has zero online sports betting or in-person.
Since I don't gamble, I didn't even know that until I read through this.
So that'd be a change. So I think it's racetracks, horse racetracks, as well as that kind of sport betting is currently permitted. However, this would allow tribal casinos to pick up the football game and the baseball game, things like that.
Basically more Vegas style, I guess. I don't know.
So that's Prop 26. It's interesting looking at these. The tribal casinos have put $59 million into funding this, saying, yes, we want this.
They clearly want it.
They want it, yeah. It would give them the control of this. They could contract with others to actually facilitate, but they would have the control of that. The regular casinos have had $44 million saying no. No, we don't want people to go there. We want them to come to.
So who are the regular casinos? I mean, we're talking about Vegas casinos?
I think so. It was going through. It wasn't saying who exactly, but I think it's trying to pull right now people who might drive to Vegas, people who might go to other options, probably outside of California. I mean, to your comment, but the tribal casinos are saying we want to stay here. So it's a high dollar race. So then that's 26. You get to 27, and this is not necessarily related to tribal casinos. This is just online gambling in general. And so there's some major players here. One's called DraftKings. One's called FanDuel.
Okay, these are the
internet-based, app-based major players in this space. And so for what this would do is it would allow some of these big players to pay a license fee to provide online sports betting in California.
Like DraftKings would pay a license fee, right?
Yep, to the state of California. And right now it's like $100 million. That's what the legislation is. You pay a $100 million licensing fee and you get to have a license in California.
There must be a huge amount of profit in these things.
Huge, massive. And I think that's why the money is flowing in. So some of the criticism is saying, well, it's not like small players are going to exist in California. It's going to be national size. And there's some other requirements that they're in multiple states, these big players. DraftKings, FanDuel. So on the yes side, there's been $170 million pushed into this.
Oh,
yeah. So nearly 3 times of what the other one was, of pushed in. On the flip side, you have tribal casinos who are saying, no, 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 don't give it to them. Give it to us. Let us run it. And they've put $180 million into saying no.
This is a big bet on both sides.
This is one. So there must be a lot of money behind this. So it's interesting, I find, is that 27, they've pushed a lot to say, well, this is going to help homeless. We're going to take that $100 million licensing fee.
I hate it. I hate this.
Right. They take something and say, we're going to use this to plug this hole.
So you feel guilty if you don't vote for it because you're saying I'm against the homeless.
I'm against the homeless, right? And on the similar side, the tribal casinos, they've said, well, it's not just the tribal casinos that are participating in running the bookings or the betting. It's also, there's money in there for casinos that aren't, or tribal lands that aren't. And so one says, do you want to help support Native American lands? Do you want to help support the homeless? Yeah, they're trying to make it about that, when really it's all about, can we bring online gambling into California?
Right.
I struggle with that as well. And the part that we were talking about yesterday, and you had more numbers on this than I did, but the homeless in California, I think California
we have 28% of the entire United States population of homeless people in California.
And I looked it up, and we have 12% of the regular population. So California is 12% of the country. That's our population size. But you're saying we have 28% of the homeless population. So over double what we, proportionally would have.
Right.
And part of it,
and I think we drive around anywhere you go in Southern California. I don't know any part of California, you see homelessness, and you see and again, not part of the propositions, but we've lost 352 corporate headquarters since 2018. And they've moved out of the state of California because, now again, I come back to the homeless, the relationship to that. A lot of those are manual jobs. Those are manufacturing, those are assembly, those things like that. And the homeless people don't have the ability to follow those jobs to some other state, right?
Yeah, if you have a kind of a minimum wage job, you may not be able to get up and move to Texas.
Exactly.
You're just now here, and the factory left. So now there's 1,000 extra people in this community that don't have work. Housing prices in California, as everyone knows, they continue to go up. And it's a problem. It's a real problem. And I think what I struggle with, I know that you struggle with, is that sometimes our state, and I'll separate, I think, the Sacramento politicians from people who are doing really, really good work in their local communities. But a lot of times I feel like the state of California, the government says, just throw more money at it. If we just have more programs, more money, it'll be better. And that would help, absolutely. But it's money to the programs that are actually making a difference.
How's it being used? I mean, how's it being implemented?
Yeah.
And these propositions, I mean, I kind of divide them between social and economic. And it seems like most of the propositions have a social bent to them. It's one of the complaints I hear from teachers is that they now have to incorporate all this social aspect in teaching rather than just teaching what they prefer to call the rudimentary aspects of education, reading, writing, arithmetic.
Yeah.
But now there's this other aspect. And I get this kind of this overview of these propositions that they're kind of pushing a social agenda.
Sure. And with 26 and 27, ultimately these are saying, should we have online or should we have sports betting in California? And that's the question. But you said the social issues of, is this a way to help homelessness? I don't know that I don't feel like California is short on money. We have high taxes, and we have we had a surplus this last year of resources, but we have so many pigeonholed bits of our budget as a state that it's hard to fund the right things. And I don't know if these fix it. So both of these, I think we're probably on the same page with these, but I don't think including gambling in California is going to be useful for Californians.
Right.
I think to say, well, it's going to give us money. Well, it's going to help the homeless. Well, it's going to help, tribal lands. Sure, maybe. But I don't think that, the first step, should we make gambling, sports gambling legal in California? I don't think it's a useful thing for us. And the reason this all came about, which I think a lot of people know, is that there was a federal ban on this. And the federal ban was lifted by the Supreme Court. They lifted this federal ban, left it up to the states. And so now each states are deciding, do we want to have sports betting in our state? And I don't think we're quite to half, but I think just under half have said yes. And so, patchwork across the country of people saying yes, yes, yes.
I think it's hard for them to walk away from the money.
Probably.
I think
especially someone like DraftKings and FanDuel that says, $100 million licensing fee every year in perpetuity, we'll pay that.
Yeah.
And that's you're right. That's a hard one. I don't know what other states, how they've structured this, but that'd be a hard one. So kind of moving, I like your comment on kind of the finance aspect of it. A lot of these are social. There's one that I think melds the two so well, is Proposition 30. It's what people are calling the wealth tax.
Right.
It's saying anyone who earns more than $200 to $2 million in
$2 million a year in income. That's taxable income, by the way.
Taxable income, that they have basically a surtax that goes on top of that. And that is going
that surtax is what, 1.75% on top.
On top, yeah, 1.7, was it 1.75?
1.75 of personal income tax.
So that goes up. And what they're saying is that money they want to use for rebates for electric vehicles, as well as building electric vehicle infrastructure. So it's a social and then economic, right? They're saying we want a social idea. We want EVs. We want to fund this. We want to make it affordable for people. We want the infrastructure. Who's going to pay for it? Well, let's not raise taxes. Nobody likes that. Let's soak the, let's pick these people.
let's go after the wealthy.
And I think a lot of folks say, well, if they're making $2 million a year, I don't care. They can pay more. And where I see this, and there's a lot of places this I'm sure comes out, but where I see it is not people who make $2 million every year. It's where I see this is people who are small business owners who sell their business.
Right.
And they're making $3 million, which is a lot. They're making a lot of money. Yeah. In that 1 year, that's the only year they're going to make it. And in California, currently, you have to pay your normal tax, which is roughly 9%. They already have a millionaire's tax. They already have I think it's a 1.2% increase on it. Well, after you get over 2 million, you have another piece. So if someone sells their business, they've worked hard, they've built it up, they're ready to retire, they sell it for $3 million. In a lot of people's mind, $3 million, I'm retired, this is great. But the reality is, I mean, it depends on everyone's situation, but you may be walking away on a $3 million sale of a business with 1.5 after all your taxes. You may have to pay off some working debt. Mm-hmm. So say you have $500,000 of loans in the business, you pay those off, you pay your taxes, you're looking at maybe $1 million of selling your business. And in California, for a lot of folks, that's not, never work again, I'm retired money.
Yeah, and this contributes to the migration. The more you tax people that have the ability to move, they're moving. And they're voting with their feet because they're moving to other states that are more tax friendly.
Right.
And it's not a matter of being patriotic. It's a matter of saying, why would I do business here? So it goes back to why corporations are leaving, because the tax and the burden in California is beginning. And again, I would go back to the person who is the average wage earner. Gasoline prices are bridging close to $6 a gallon. You go outside the state of California and gasoline prices are measurably less. Yeah. Now, they've talked about reducing and giving back the tax that the surcharge tax that they give on gasoline. And yet we haven't seen any of those actions. We have not seen any of those actions. And again, I think a lot of the money that goes towards these things, and they talk about homelessness, they talk about these other things, but the money is truly not being used in the key areas. And they're pushing forward for the EVs, like for electric vehicles, they're pushing forward that agenda ahead of time. And Californians are paying a big, heavy price for that right now.
Yeah. And we'll continue to. And it'll be interesting if you say the wealth tax Prop 30, if this were to pass and go forward, how many small businesses will leave the state,
right?
Either because they can't operate here, their employees, can't live off, a normal wage here. Even before a sale, they move out and they sell their business after they lived in Texas for 3 years,
right?
Go through that process. And then they live the rest of their lives in Texas,
right?
Paying taxes in Texas. And I think it's a real, for people who make $2 million every year, maybe it's a different story. I don't know. Right. But for people who are going through those once in a lifetime sell your business moments, I hear the story and I see it a lot where people will leave the state, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I think, again, going back to homelessness, I mean, Governor Newsom come out with a kind of a Marshall Plan, they called it, and he wanted to create low-income housing for 3.5 million homeless people. He wanted, because we're way behind on affordable housing. Mm-hmm. And yet that has fallen flat because the rules and regulations have overwhelmed the cost. Mm-hmm. And to come to build a affordable housing, it's virtually impossible for developers to do that.
Right. I mean, some of the quotes I'd heard where they're saying we're going to build affordable housing, and each unit, I think the one I heard, I don't remember the exact number, but I thought it was $1 million a unit.
Yeah, well,
they're building this, and it was just ridiculous that is the best we could do for affordable housing in California.
And that's scary because you talk about equality and trying to get people integrated into some kind of lifestyle that makes sense so they can afford to live here. Yeah. So you look at housing costs and and again, these propositions, that doesn't necessarily deal with the individual propositions, but I come back to, what do I feel more comfortable with is if the propositions would really reduce the cost of just living in California. Yeah. And I don't see that. I see all these propositions as increasing the cost. And then the social aspect of gambling, I'm sorry, I just don't think that's a positive for our economy.
Useful for us.
If you miss any part of this episode, you can always go to our website, which is retirementunlimited.com or Tricord Advisors. And you can go to the section where it says the radio program, Retirement Unlimited, and look not only at this episode, but also in previous episodes. And again, if you'd like to do anything, you'd like us to talk about anything that we haven't talked about either in this or in previous episodes, go to our link and send us a question. We'd be more than happy to talk about it on a radio program.